We have an exciting 1 hour before us. We have two people who are with us. And I know there's people here from Peel, there's people here from Hamilton, there's people here from Brampton, from the GTHA, this little thing called community benefits that actually started in the US. Yes, Toronto, it had some deeper roots in Toronto now, but it is getting a Southern Ontario and indeed a Canada-wide focus. The two speakers that we have here, of course, open it up to questions from the floor. We have April Lim from the City of Toronto. April Lim is an experienced leader in municipal social policy innovation. At the City of Toronto, April is a change influencer and a bridge builder. Indeed, she is. Throughout her leadership experience, relationships have cross-pollinated between stakeholders, sectors, and communities to bring life into innovative policy ideas driven by equity principles. In 2018, April played a strategic policy and stakeholder relations role in ensuring community voices were reflected in the Rexdale Casino Woodbine Community Benefits Agreement. In April 2019, she led a consultation with city divisions, construction industry leaders, trade unions, and community stakeholders to inform what now is in the City of Toronto a community benefits framework. In 2012, she launched the Community Benefits Unit. There actually is a full unit of people here in the City of Toronto, paid staff, and it's the first of its kind in Canada. Growing up in the Korean-Canadian immigrant family has had a strong influence on April's academic path, which has always led her in the direction of systemic inequality, intersectionality, and social determinants of health at the forefront. After completing a degree at the University of Waterloo, April planted her critical research and policy roots at the University of Toronto, doing both the master's and doctoral social work programs. Holy smokes, April. She is an avid camper and hiker who loves to visit parks and trails across Ontario. So that's April. And we also have, speaking of Waterloo, we have Martha Wolf. She has spent over 15 years in leadership in municipal and provincially funded programs encompassing education, employment, and financial assistance, with focus most recently on community benefit projects. Community Benefits is located at the intersection of education and employment and provides opportunities to connect those who often have been overlooked and left out. This alignment is how April became involved. Currently working as manager of employment and income support for the region of Waterloo, Martha works to support policies and practices that support people to find meaningful employment. A lifelong learner, Martha's education includes a master's and bachelor of education, a bachelor of psychology, and diplomas in human resource management and executive municipal management. So we're going to hear from them about 10 minutes, more or less, each, and then we'll open it up for conversation and questions.
It's me.
Martha's going first. Over to you, Martha.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our session. As you would have heard, I am now Manager of Employment and Income Support at the region of Waterloo, which means that I'm working within Ontario Works programming. And if you're not familiar with that, some people might have heard of it as welfare. So if you were to consider, just even hearing some of my educational background, what I have in that profile is privilege. I have privilege to work in this role, and I have had privilege to attend a lot of education, and there's been so many factors that have contributed to my ability to do that, and that privilege has allowed me to know that that's not extended everywhere. It is unearned privilege, and working within Ontario Works, I have to reconcile daily that I am operating in a program that I know is very problematic. It is a social safety net by term, but it is not providing safety for anyone who is in receipt of Ontario Works. So it is a challenge for me personally and my own personal values every day to decide, what can I do? Do I want to work in the system? The system sucks. Let's just be real. $733 is basic financial assistance for an individual. That is no ability to live. So every day that I choose to go and do that work, I still have to say, if I'm going to work here, what am I going to do to make this better? And what can I do to work outside of the systems that have been established to try to improve circumstances for individuals? Well, every day I do that within the Ontario Works program. Community benefits became an opportunity that stole my heart, with the potential of having some greater leveling and access to opportunity that we know for so many reasons does not extend where it should in our community. So that's a little bit about me. If we could go to my first slide, I guess my second slide. Okay, so how community benefits came to the region of Waterloo. How many people here attended this session prior to this one in this room? Hands up. Okay, y'all heard some exciting stuff. This is not that. This is where that started. We are at the baby days. We are not. Okay. We are not the accomplished outcomes of community benefits. We are the process. So I'm going to tell you the story of community benefits from the region of Waterloo, and hopefully there's something to be learned there. So we had some folks, actually. We had a housing manager who worked in the city of Toronto, or a region here, and he came to the region of Waterloo and brought with him the idea of social procurement. And it started to swirl within our housing community and within our employment and income community. And we had managers and leaders who were passionate, and we had staff who were advocating that we needed to do something differently, that they don't want to work in this system either if there's no hope. So this became something that was considered, and it actually started with a youth force program. So within our housing unit, we hired individuals who worked within housing to do some of the work for housing, so safety and maintenance checks in the summer. And it was written into the housing master plan, and that's what finally caught the attention of city council. And we had some councillors who sort of latched onto it. And I must say that if without that councillor support, it might have continued to swirl sort of at a grassroots organic outside of the actual sort of authority of the region. And then the pandemic, boo, the pandemic. Nothing happened. We all just tried to survive. So it was a little bit of a break, and many staff turnovers in that time. Like, let's be real, the same people who started these work, they had changed, and it had been like a telephone game of there's community benefits and social procurement. And by the time it landed on my desk, I did not know what we were doing, why we were doing it. And I really wished and hoped for some help. We don't have, like they have here, there's no Waterloo Community Benefits Network. And there's just me. But it wasn't just me. It was myself. And then I was involved with a committee of individuals that were striving to figure it out from each of their own perspectives. So in 2021, a regional councillor brought forward a motion to create an ad hoc committee to review the viability of these programs. And this is where some of our first work began. And I have to say, like, it could have died 8 million times if we hadn't had a counselor and reports. It would have. There's always another priority. That is the way the systems of oppression work. That is why we can't get things moving forward, because there's so many things to distract us all the time that we can feel like are part of our work, and they take us away from the ability to do this really meaningful work. So thank goodness, city councillors making a difference, that we had that actually regional councillor who helped us drive this forward and held us accountable to some outcomes. So what we set to, if we can go to the next slide, we had a goal to identify ways to use our buying power. We all know this. This is what we talked about this morning. We wanted to recruit, engage, and retain a diverse labor force, focusing on underrepresented groups, which we kept broad in the hopes that, there would be many opportunities for intervention and the ability to support. So when we were doing all of this, we had a council resolution. We were working forward, and we started to reach out to the TCBN. We reached out to Vancouver. We tried looking everywhere to learn the lessons of other communities and to find out what the heck we were doing. But that all happened before I even joined the group. So then I joined the group, and I didn't know what anyone was talking about. So we had to do some of that learning a little bit over and over again to figure out how we were going to actually accomplish this vision. But if we can go to the next slide, It started with engagement and consultation. So we knew that at some point we wanted to have language for community benefits that would enter into contracts. And we wanted to understand if that is going to be the case, what will the reaction be? Because we certainly don't want token language. We don't want token language in a contract that allows people to check a box and feel like we've all done something for community benefits. That can occur, and something we had to be really aware of that we did not want to see. And so we understood when we spoke to our industry representatives, we talked to construction associations, employment agencies, local training institutions to say, if a new contract is going to go out, and what we were looking at specifically is housing development. So when we're developing affordable housing, it goes out to contract, and the successful bidder would then have an obligation to a community benefits objective within that contract. So we had to say, like, what if we said this? What if we said you have to hire this many people, or you have to train this many people? Like, how is this going to work? And we wanted a really collaborative relationship, because we didn't want to put anything in that wasn't gonna work. If it's not gonna work, we don't want to do it. So we worked with those folks to try to better understand what the needs were. And that led to a special public consultation led by committee that was open for delegation. And we had many industry partners, local education institutions come, as well as the general public, to voice their opinions and thoughts on what the vision for community benefits could look like at the region of Waterloo. We also, I think, engaged Waterloo region. I think there's engage all sorts of regions. So we used that platform as well to engage with the general public. We had to be very careful, though, because, again, I don't know all the things. And so when we talk about engagement, we have to be aware of the level of engagement that we're actually involving people in. We didn't need to know any more reasons for why this was important. We already had that engagement. We just needed to know the how and how people could help us move forward with this vision. So if we go on to the next, we came to a place where we saw there being opportunity within construction projects, within our housing projects. We'd spoken to the contractors, and we had city councilors were really at an apprenticeship level. City councilors were like, we want people in good jobs, long-term apprentices. But when we spoke to our education institutions and our contractors, they're like, we don't know how to make that work, because apprenticeship is a whole different system, and we don't know how to align these two things. So we looked at other options that would also exist. From my perspective, working with within social assistance, I know that there is benefit just to workplace exposure. So at a sort of low level of intervention, just figuring out what a workplace looks like, figuring out what it is expected if you're going to go into an industry, that is a certain level of engagement that still has the ability to sort of set a new trajectory for an individual. We also understood that at a general labor sort of intervention, that's widening the pot of people who would maybe be able to access it, because the skill level for the entry into that was also broader, so people could potentially participate at that level. We still totally saw the value of apprenticeships. We're just trying to figure out the how. And then we also thought, if people who have the skills are not finding their way into the industry, what is the deal? Sort of where are the barriers, and can we assist you to find more people who are currently underrepresented in these industries and make their way into the construction field to support these projects? So if we could go to the next slide. So we ended up with a pilot. So we have 2 contracts, 2 builds that are happening now. We based it on the City of Toronto model. We put language into our contracts that they would participate in workforce development activities. And we left it like to the appropriate scope, scale, and feasibility of their project. So instead of driving hard, we wanted to partner with individuals. And while we don't have a community benefits unit, we wanted to, as regional staff members, support contractors, whoever was the successful candidate, to be able to achieve a community benefits outcome that was meaningful. So this could include things like recruitment strategies, training and mentoring, administration of the plan, and reporting requirements. And we had a broad definition of designated individuals. And then we had a plan for evaluation. So this was what got support from Regional Council, was to pilot with 2 building projects. And that is where we are at right now. So we have 2 capital projects, one that is underway, and this is where the lessons that are learned just keep coming. If we go to the next slide, we'll tell you a little bit more about who was all involved in this from a regional perspective. So I got to make friends with people in procurement and facilities and finance. I'm the community and social services elements, but we also have equity, diversity, inclusivity areas of our organization, communications and contractors in the industry. The thing that's hard about this is all of us are specialists in our area and nobody is a specialist in how these all overlap. So I think it's just important to acknowledge that we stared at each other for a long time, blinking and being like, well, but you're going to take this on, right? And then me, from my social services background, would be like, well, we can just do this. And procurement's like, no, you can't do that. That doesn't work. It doesn't meet our requirements. So there was a lot of that happened, and a lot of lessons learned for us to finally land on some language that we could all understand, and that a contractor could understand, and that a person who is participating in this program could understand. So we ended up with language, which I think is the next slide, that this is sort of the legal stuff, that we also would include a cash allowance. Now, a cash allowance is for the contractor, in this case because it is a pilot. So we said, we get it. You're going to come be a partner with us in this. And because you're going to be a partner and we're not going to know, and there's going to be an added burden for you in terms of figuring out with us what this could look like, we can give you some compensation. We also might ask you to take on individuals who you normally wouldn't hire because they're not necessarily at the place that you need them to be training-wise. And you can account for some of that by this cash allowance. That's not something I anticipate we'll have moving forward. I anticipate that falls away after we figure out how this all works, and we are in a better place to say that we understand what is expected, but who knows, maybe it'll continue. So we have up to 2,000 hours of workforce development written into the contract with flexibility for that to be used in the way that the contractor and we as the region agree on. So there is flexibility in that. So I'll tell you how it's working. I bet you're curious. So the first person to be awarded a contract was very enthusiastic. We're so excited, right? This is a great company. They're really into community benefits. So wonderful. Small little catch there. They use most of the work for their projects through subcontracted companies who only hire unionized staff. And we're like, excuse me, what? How'd you agree to this then? But that didn't stop us. So that's wonderful news. They have been an excellent partner to help us triage the intersection of two subcontractor employers and two unions, the plumbing union and the drywall folks, to help us figure out what timing is appropriate for someone to engage in the project. And where we thought apprenticeships were going to be too hard to actually engage with, they're working with us on that. So the individuals who do end up being the participants from community benefits will be registered apprentices at the first level through this union work. So we are learning. Now they were supposed to start about now, and now they're not starting until spring. So that was another fun fact. We recruited a bunch of folks who we thought would be great fits. They met the criteria, we supported them, and then the job is delayed. And from a service perspective, that feels terrible. So we've gotten you all excited that maybe you're going to be working with a union doing drywalling and the job is delayed. So then we, from a service perspective, have to loop back and say, we are still going to offer you job development services. We're going to try. We see that you have the skills. It's not this employer, not this moment, but let's help you find something else. And if you're still available when this comes up, we're going to come back and loop you back in. So what does my next slide say? Oh, these are our experiences. We have our first contract is underway. I already told you about all of that. I actually told you about all of these things so far. And I think I only have one more slide. Okay, yeah, this is the key learnings. This is right. So the challenges that we have faced and the key learnings is that we want what the City of Toronto has. Thank goodness they're blazing the trail. We want dedicated resources. I don't know how I ended up here. I'm certainly not an expert in any of this. Could I develop the expertise? Sure, but I'd have to not have another full-time job. So I need the region to come to the table, and I don't care if it's me or it's whoever, but we need dedicated resources. So if you're a decision maker in this room about any of that, please dedicate resources to community benefits. And if you're advocating for it at your community, use the City of Toronto as an excellent example of all that can be accomplished. I think the other challenge is assigning responsibility and accountability. Like, we're all co-workers. We work in very broad departments. It was really hard. We needed one to take the lead, and it ended up being community services. Why? Because we got to help people. That's why. And we're really bent that way. We did have a strong partnership with facilities, but we all blinked at each other for at least 3 meetings until someone said, I'm just going to take this on. The other thing is ensuring meaningful impact. We want to make sure that whatever we're doing actually makes a difference, because it can be lost. By the time you finally climb that hill to get the contract language in, by the time you have finally got your contractor, you need to actually evaluate, did this do the thing we meant it to do? Did it actually help someone? And I was so inspired by the session prior, because they are demonstrating meaningful impact can occur. We just want to make sure that we aren't checking boxes, that community benefits is finding the multiplying effect of our regional dollars in community. And I think there's just one more slide, which is my motivation every day. How long should we try? Until we're not there yet. And we're going to hear now about people who are further down the process of establishing community benefits in their community. But this is where we're at. We're still at trying. And we're happy to be in that place for now. Maybe I'll come back to the next session and tell you about everything we've accomplished.
Amazing. You have a great story to tell, and it kind of brought me back to City of Toronto 2017-ish, when we were at that step here in this city debating around these tables here and upstairs in council chambers. What the heck are we going to do around community development, community benefits? And we basically didn't know too much. So I would say they're writing their Region of Waterloo, Chapter 1. And I think to introduce April, maybe she's chapter 3 or 4, and maybe Hamilton's chapter 4 or 5 or 3 or 2. But all of these cities are on journeys. We're all on a journey to try to figure out how do we make our cities and use the policy levers, bylaws, leadership that councillors or staff can provide at the local municipal level to get the community benefits job done. So to tell the Toronto story, different story, over to you, April.
Thank you so much, Joe. And I just really want to congratulate Martha on all the work that's happening in the region of Waterloo. Very relatable, because we have been there. In many ways, we are still there. And I really think that you are much further along than you think. And the level of sophistication on articulating the challenges is at least one huge lesson learned for the City of Toronto. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to work together. So if you can just bring up the presentation, please. Thank you. This, I'm hoping in the next few minutes, I can help to share the story, the City of Toronto story, about how we were able to arrive at what we call the community benefits framework. It's a story that is kind of where we've come from, where we've been, where we're at, and where we're hoping to go. And I really do thank everybody for being here today to talk about 2 big P words, policy and process, which usually put people to sleep, but hopefully this will be a story that will be a bit interesting. Next slide, please. If you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. This proverb really is a really good illustration of the story, the experience that we have had at the City of Toronto. On the next slide, where we started, there's been a lot of confusion, a lot of expectations, a lot of chaos. And when we first began to have these conversations, we very quickly realized that there are many different players in the ecosystem called community benefits. And within that ecosystem, are subsystems, and within those systems, subsystems. So when you bring together different groups and partners from skilled trades, from development, from various city departments, from community, of which there are many different organizations and groups, you realize that not only are there different interests in the same room, often that are competing, there's also a realization that this might be one of the first times that all of these different players are coming together in the same room to be forced or to be willing to talk about a number of different issues and opportunities. On the next slide, what we have at the City of Toronto today is a community benefits framework that's really looking at creating inclusive economic development when the City of Toronto buys and builds. What does that mean exactly? Well, what it means is that we are looking to embed community benefits clauses in city agreements that are clauses that include hard measurable targets on a number of different things. And these are clauses that can create training and employment opportunities that reach Indigenous, Black, and equity-deserving groups. They can create business opportunities for local and diverse suppliers, and ultimately create equitable social and economic impact through large-scale city projects, initiatives, and events. The CBF is an innovative municipal policy and program approach that provides coordination and guidance to our internal city divisions, agencies, to city councilors' offices on community benefits initiatives and kind of the how-to and the what now. This CBF is led by a new unit. It's 18 months old, called the Community Benefits Unit, which also leads on community benefits research and policy, develops community benefits implementation tools, as well as convenes, consults, and engages with a number of external and community partners, many of whom are in the room here today. Some examples of some of the bigger city community benefits initiatives within which there are multiple projects, within which there are opportunities for clauses, include the social procurement program, the Rexdale Casino Woodbine Community Benefits Agreement, Housing Now, transit expansion projects, the IMIT program, FIFA, as well as Toronto community housing projects. And I mean, in the workshop prior, Beth had walked through a number of some of the outcomes that have come out, for example, of the Rexdale Casino Woodbine CBA, 2,500 jobs created, of which half have identified as equity hires. And for example, in the social procurement program, from 2017 to 2021, the city awarded over $6 million of contracts to certified diverse suppliers. 61 city projects have included workforce development requirements and collectively have created 67 new jobs, 173 subcontracting opportunities to diverse suppliers, and within them over $9 million of spend to certified diverse suppliers. And a number of those suppliers who have been awarded these city contracts have participated in over 100 employment-related activities that are geared toward Indigenous, Black, and equity-deserving communities. On the next slide, I just want to pause for a moment to just clarify definitions, because the term community benefits is used interchangeably to describe a number of different mechanisms and initiatives. In the Ontario Planning Act, there is a definition of community benefits that's really specifically in the context of the Planning Act, of Section 37, and of the use and delivery of community benefits charges. In the US, we hear the term CBAs a lot, which are agreements used since the 90s that have typically been between developers and community-based organizations, with local governments playing much more of a smaller role. And the city's Toronto community benefits framework really is referring to a range of outcomes that create meaningful training, employment, and business opportunities. And as was noted on the previous slide, really works on leveraging clauses within city agreements and contracts. On the next slide, this timeline illustrates our policy journey. Prior to the community benefits framework being adopted in 2019, there were a number of cumulative positive effect of inclusive economic development related policies and strategies at the City of Toronto. TCBN and their members and a number of you that are in this room have all played an integral role in pushing the City of Toronto to do more, to act faster, to take action, and to really hold the city accountable to advancing community benefits throughout this entire timeline and journey. The Community Benefits Framework in 2019 was really several years in the making, and came at a time when there was really a perfect storm of strong political will on Toronto City Council, as well as really strong community organizing and advocacy, public interest, and also at a time where City of Toronto policy staff were very dedicated and supportive of bringing information, jurisdictional research, and really informing how we could develop a framework to be an overarching guide for how we can make this work at the City of Toronto. On the next slide, the Community Benefits Advisory Group is really a key way that we ensure that we are in constant communication and engagement with that ecosystem of players in the community benefits ecosystem. This group was launched in 2021 and has met quarterly ever since, as well as created 3 additional working groups where a lot of the nitty-gritty problem solving has happened, and a number of folks around in this room, again, are part of all of these groups, so it's just really wonderful. The Community Benefits Advisory Group is a strategic external and community partner group that has the expertise and capacity that the city can leverage as opposed to doing it alone. There's no way we could possibly do this work alone. As you can see on the 2 bulleted lists, there is representation from a wide range of key players, partners, and groups. On the next slide, over the last 18 months of the Community Benefits Unit being in existence, we have been furiously working on developing a community benefits toolkit. This is really a response to what we have heard again and again from a number of different partners about how community benefits is a great idea. We want to do it. We want to be a part of it. But how? How do we track the data? How do we report it? How do we find the job seekers that we're targeting? How do we put clauses into city contracts? How do we do any of this, and how do we do it together? So we got to work, we rolled up our sleeves, we launched these working groups. We invited many of you here to say, help us co-design, collaborate with us, help us figure out how to design, to prototype, and to create what we are really excited to now call the different components of our toolkit. We talked to a dozen different jurisdictions across North America. Tell us how you do what you're doing. And we found a way to create a made in Toronto, made for Toronto approach. A big part of what is in this toolkit that I just want to, point out is around the monitoring and evaluation framework. And this is where the rubber really hits the road and where we face some of our biggest challenges. And that's around collecting disaggregated data. At this summit, we've been talking a lot about moving from what to moving to how, and to about taking action. And if there's one thing that I leave with the summit, it's that we all have a role to play in collecting disaggregated data in order for us to better tell this story of impact and outcomes in a much more data-informed, evidence-based way. And that really is a huge way for us to grow, to scale, to expand, and to help our regional partners tell the story. And so what we are trying to do is to begin to help to develop those tools and to test them out. This community benefits toolkit is new. We are just beginning to roll out and pilot test the use of the number of these tools, first on city-led projects, and then we're hoping to roll that out even further. On the next slide, we get asked a lot about what about the private sector-led projects and how do we encourage them to include community benefits on those projects as well. So we're talking about projects that are not city-led, that are not city-funded. And as part of a member's motion from 2022 that came forward from the one and only Councillor Joe Mahevik at the time, it really prompted us at the City of Toronto to think about what role does the City of Toronto play when it comes to being a convener, a coordinator, and encouraging these private developers to voluntarily opt into creating their own community benefits plans that set hard measurable targets and that hold them accountable to monitoring and oversight over time. And so we have started to do this work. We are taking a case study approach. We're working with potentially up to 3 different developers who are leading private development projects at the city to begin to embark on how do we do this, what does it look like, and what are the various roles by the different players around the table. And finally, just a bit of a recap on the lessons learned. So what we have learned among many different things is what I have kind of summarized on this list. One huge piece is that this is a major change management, systems changing, transformative initiative. And it takes time. Any systems change, as we know, takes time. It also takes resources. It's not side of desk work. It takes teams and it takes dedication. It's also an initiative that for which community engagement and articulating community roles proactively and upfront is critical. Also, relationship building. Everything rests on relationship building. And that is a huge key piece that I think has contributed to our success at the City of Toronto, is that we have we've tried to convene, to invite, to coordinate, to introduce, to network, and to really build relationships, both internally as well as externally. And then another key piece is around municipal levers and enforcement. Everybody has a role to play, but as a region, as a city, as a municipality, what are the legal authorities that we can use to, and that we can bring out to community to say, in our lane, this is what we are willing to really to use and to make sure and to leverage to create these outcomes. I already talked about the disaggregated data collection, and the last piece is really around public recognition. I think that when folks are dedicating a lot of time, resources, and energies to this work, it's really important that we recognize who those early adopters and champions are and name them and give them an opportunity to shine. And lastly, on my last slide, Joe, before I pass it to you, is really just a note about coming together being the beginning, keeping together is the progress, and working together is really, truly the success.
Thank you, April. So we started a bit late. We're supposed to finish at 12:30, but we'll give it a few more minutes if that's okay with everyone. The food is right there, so just let it stay there, but just get your appetites ready. We're going to have a little conversation for the next 5 to 10 minutes. And we'll open the floor up to questions. I'll start with 2 of them, but I'll ask them not to answer so that you can prime your pump for the questions and comments that you would have. Then we'll throw them all at them and then give them a chance to respond with however many minutes they need to respond. So here are my 2 questions. And they're basically the same question. What are the next steps for the city, for the region of Waterloo? Where do you want to be in 3 years? And maybe that'll be a little bit of a template for those folks here who are from other municipalities that they can model or take best practices from you. Similarly, for April, what are the next steps for the City of Toronto? Where do we want to be? Where does City of Toronto want to be in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? So hold those questions. Question here, we'll go around the circle. Right here? Use the mic. If you possibly can, use the mic or speak or project.
Yeah. Okay, my name is Martin Adelar. I'm here with the Ottawa Community Benefits Network. Thank you for your amazing presentations. So 2 more questions I throw in the pot. We don't have a community benefits policy in Ottawa. What are the 3 top selling points that we could make to City Council in the elevator pitch? That's question 1. And question 2, how is the absence of a fair wage policy in Ottawa a challenge or a benefit to creating an effective workforce development initiative under your community benefits policy? That's it.
Great. Good. Okay. We're going to need an afternoon. Sorry, that gentleman at the back there.
Hi, my name is Fraser. I have a question about scale. So Toronto's a very large city, regional Waterloo is relatively large. How scalable are these type of policies to smaller or mid-sized communities? Towns of 10,000, cities under 100,000, things like that, so you can actually scale this up across the country.
Great. Right here.
Yeah, so questions for Toronto. We have several issues regarding infrastructure. I live in a building that predates my parents coming to Canada. So how would a community benefits program in, say, my riding of Ward 6 address the issues of lowering carbon footprint and greenhouse gas reductions? How would I get that started?
Okay. Going around. Right here.
I hope everyone can hear me. So, April, you mentioned about the private developers, and I mentioned the motion that last year. So I was wondering if you can just elaborate or just speak a bit more about the private developers uptake. I know you mentioned the 2 projects, but if you can, what is their appetite being, and are they, is it meaningful? How that's going?
Great. Question. There was someone here kind of had a little bit of a, okay, right here, last question.
Yes, my name is Cassandra.
Maybe press your mic, thank you, so we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, my name is Cassandra, and I have a vested interest in the Little Jamaica one. So my question is, when we approach developers as a community group, and we're in talks with them about having community benefits, my question is about incentivizing it for the developers, because us in the room, we're from community groups and training programs and all of that, and we understand the social benefit, but these are investors that don't even live in our neighborhoods, and they don't really care. So you had mentioned something about in early adopters, like you would give some reward. Can you give an example of that so that that can help us to think how to pitch that to developers, how to pitch community benefits to developers? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Great. Okay, last one.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mehrza Taqizadeh. Thank you very much for your presentation. You have mentioned regarding recruiting the youth and the other people through the program. I would like to know in what way you are recruiting and what are the site or maybe any other information that you are providing to whom and how and where. Thank you very much.
So a bunch of questions there. I'm going to invite each of you 3 minutes each to answer what you can. That doesn't mean the conversation is over. That means that we're going to go to lunch, and the people who ask those questions are going to come directly to talk to April and to Martha if their questions are not answered while they are speaking now. Who wants to go first? Flip a coin. Okay, April's going first.
Okay, I will go first. I'll make it really quick, and I won't be able to answer all the questions. They're excellent questions, but I will stick around. So if I didn't, please let's chat at lunch. One that I just wanted to touch on was around scaling, or I think part of it. I'm combining a few questions. But really, the hope is to test out some of the tools that we've developed, prove that they are starting to work, collect the data to show that the outcome and the impact intended can be achieved, and then begin to scale up and to begin to scale out. And similar to, I think, Fraser's question around how do you scale to smaller municipalities? How do you scale up? It's really what seems to have worked for us is to pilot test, to pick one project that is a low-hanging fruit and pick it very strategically and with really intentional selection that it has the characteristics that show that it can succeed. So is there a willing early adopter communicative partner on the project, a developer with general contractor who's already committed to all kinds of diversity, equity, inclusion principles in their own corporations? Have they got experience doing this in the past? Well, then you're not starting from scratch. Is it a big opportunity, a large project with a big budget and a multi-year opportunity so that there is a long runway to create these opportunities? Is it in a location that is place-based where that there is a historical experiences in the community of organizing and of these opportunities having a really strong impact? There's a number of those different opportunities to think about. And then lastly, before passing it to Martha about the private developers and how that's going so far, there has been appetite and discussions that are happening with a developer in Downsview, as well as a few developers in Little Jamaica. And so the discussions are happening, and what is in those discussions? It's around what are the carrots and the sticks at our disposal? What are the incentives we can offer? And what are the opportunities? What are the shared mutual beneficial outcomes that we can really leverage? What is it that you need as a private sector partner from us to make this something that you're willing to embark on? And how can we kind of come together to agree that we're just going to try something and learn as we go?
Okay, I'll try to answer a few things. So I think in terms of getting council support, like council support for us was slightly easier, but when it came to contractor and construction, one of the things that I heard the mayor say today is, taking an approach of enlightened self-interest. So what is in it for everyone? But we have been so blunt as to say, adapt or die as an industry. Literally, you don't have the workforce. So come to the table, we will help you find pathways for people to get into the workforce, and then you will have a profitable company that maintains. So I like to boil it down to the punchline there. In terms of a knowledge level, I heard a question from the back around people at the knowledge level. We did in ours, it wasn't specific. We kept our community benefits language broad enough and we had conversations with the companies to say, you could bring in an administrator, you could bring in a project manager, you could bring in an apprentice. All of those would fall under the category of still meeting the requirement, because we're looking at all the levels that we were hoping. And then I heard a question around how are we engaging with the job seekers? So we engaged with our EO partner network to say and now we're region of Waterloo, so it's a little easier. Like there's 12 providers, whereas City of Toronto, I'm sure there's a few more. But we put it out to all of them. We're doing community benefits. We may come to you. We would like you to help us find the candidates that you think would be a good fit. We didn't want there to be any sort of advantage for one organization over another, just everyone partner with us. And we did really start from a scalability perspective with BB steps. It's a little BB project, which we really hope in 3 years to grow, establish, and evaluate. And it will be the best policy is a responsive policy. So we will continue to change our practices to make sure we are trying to hit the target.
Great, thank you very much. Martha, thank you for coming down the 401 to visit our little municipality here and for sharing your experience. The region of Waterloo it's great to see that you are breaking new ground there. So thank you for sharing. April, every time I speak with you, I'm amazed at your talent and your commitment to this work, and it is a blessing for the City of Toronto to have you in its civic administration. So let's thank them for the good work.